The town of Texarkana rested uneasily beneath the southern moonlight, its streets winding through the borderland between Texas and Arkansas. The year was 1946, and the echoes of war had faded, replaced by a haunting fear that would grip the community in the months to come, the fear of the Phantom Killer. February 22, 1946, marked the beginning of a reign of terror that would cast a shadow over Texarkana. Jimmy Hollis and Mary Jean Larry, a young couple seeking solace in the quiet outskirts of town, were the first victims. The Lover's Lane, bathed in the soft glow of the moon, became an unwitting stage for a tragedy that would set the stage for a series of chilling events. The night air was crisp, and the stars twinkled overhead as Jimmy and Mary Jean parked their car in a secluded spot. Unbeknownst to them, a figure lurked in the shadows, cloaked in darkness and fueled by malevolence. As the couple embraced, the Phantom Killer emerged from the night, a white hood concealing their identity, and a sinister intention guiding their steps. The first strike was swift and brutal. The Phantom Killer confronted Jimmy and Mary Jean with a gun, his face hidden behind the mask. A savage beating ensued, leaving the couple battered and broken. The assailant vanished into the night, leaving behind a trail of shock and horror. Texarkana was plunged into a state of collective unease. The quiet streets, once familiar and comforting, now harbored an unseen menace. The moonlight, once a source of serenity, cast elongated shadows that seemed to whisper the name of the elusive Phantom Killer. Despite the brutality of the attack, Jimmy and Mary Jean survived, their bodies bearing witness to the violence that had befallen them. The town was on edge, and whispers of the attack spread like wildfire. Fear, palpable and consuming, settled over Texarkana like a shroud. Law enforcement, unaccustomed to such heinous crimes, scrambled to make sense of the chaos. The Phantom Killer had left behind scant evidence, a spectral presence haunting the edges of the investigation. The town's sheriff, William Presley, found himself thrust into a nightmare with no discernible end. Weeks passed, and the moon waxed and waned over Texarkana, but the grip of fear remained. Young couples hesitated to venture into the night, and the once popular lovers' lanes fell silent. The Phantom Killer, emboldened by the terror they had unleashed, lay in wait for the next opportunity to strike. March descended upon Texarkana like a harbinger of doom. The second attack took place on March 24, 1946, claiming the lives of Richard Griffin and Polly and more. The Lover's Lane, once a haven for the young and enamored, became a hunting ground for the merciless killer. Richard and Polly, and unaware of the tragedy that befell Jimmy and Mary Jean, sought refuge in the quiet corners of Texarkana. Their stolen moments of bliss were shattered when the Phantom Killer descended upon them, wielding a firearm and clad in the same white hood that had marked their first attack. The night was darker than before, a veil of dread settling over the town. The Phantom Killer, driven by a malevolent force, confronted Richard and Polly and with a violence that defied reason. Shots rang out, echoing through the night as the Lover's Lane became a scene of unspeakable horror. The morning light revealed the aftermath, the lifeless bodies of Richard and Polly and their dreams extinguished by the merciless hands of the Phantom Killer. Texarkana recoiled in shock, the weight of tragedy pressing upon the town's collective soul. The Phantom Killer had now claimed lives, leaving a scar on Texarkana that refused to heal. The town, once defined by its sense of community, now grappled with mistrust and paranoia. The very fabric of daily life had been torn asunder, replaced by the chilling realization that a faceless predator lurked in the shadows. As April dawned, the town awaited answers that seemed elusive. Law enforcement, inundated by the wave of fear that swept through Texarkana, intensified their efforts to apprehend the Phantom Killer. Community members, gripped by terror, turned to one another with a shared sense of vulnerability. The third attack, occurring on April 13, 1946, targeted Betty Jo Booker and Paul Martin. The Lover's Lane, once a symbol of youthful escapades, became synonymous with tragedy. Betty Jo and Paul, like those before them, fell victim to the Phantom Killer's relentless pursuit. The night air, heavy with the scent of impending rain, witnessed the final moments of Betty Jo and Paul's lives. The Phantom Killer, Their White Hood, a spectral visage in the darkness, confronted the couple with a menace that transcended mortal comprehension. The crack of gunfire shattered the silence, and the lovers' lane claimed two more souls. The discovery of Betty Jo and Paul's lifeless bodies intensified the terror that gripped Texarkana. The town was paralyzed by fear, its streets empty, and its once vibrant community reduced to a collective gasp. The Phantom Killer, having left a trail of death in their wake, vanished into the abyss. Texarkana, now synonymous with the Moonlight Murders, struggled to find solace. The Phantom Killer had etched their name into the town's history, a malevolent force that defied identification. Law enforcement, grappling with an investigation fraught with dead ends, faced an adversary who seemed to materialize from the shadows. The summer of 1946 brought no respite. The town, haunted by the specter of the Phantom Killer, navigated a landscape marked by fear and mistrust. The lovers' lanes, once teeming with the laughter of youth, now stood as grim reminders of lives lost and innocence stolen. As the months passed, the Phantom Killer's legacy cast a long shadow over Texarkana. The once unified community found itself fractured, its people divided by suspicion and dread. The murderer, eluding capture, became an enigma, a phantom that vanished into the annals of true crime history. Over the years, countless theories and suspects emerged, each shrouded in uncertainty. The identity of the Phantom Killer remained a mystery, leaving Texarkana with scars that time could not heal. The moonlight, once a source of solace, now bore witness to the echoes of a tragedy that lingered in the hearts of those who had endured the darkness. The Moonlight Murders of Texarkana, a tale etched in the annals of true crime, continue to captivate and haunt. The White Hood, the gunshots in the night, and the lovers' lanes transformed into scenes of horror, all remain indelible symbols of a chapter in American history where a town's sense of safety was shattered, and the Phantom Killer slipped away into the obscurity of the night.